All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. Andy, are we in the clear?
We'll see, but we should be. Um, as everybody probably knows from listening to this, I have a 2-year-old and she does not want to go to bed tonight. So I apologize if anybody hears a little child sound like she's getting murdered. She is not. She's just throwing a temper tantrum, and I will try to mute my mic as fast as possible. So a little pre-alert.
I told Andy that he should be filming her episodes so that, and obviously I'm no parent, but like filming it so when you're like 16 to 18, you use it as ammunition for when you need some blackmail against your kid.
Right? Like, you remember how terrible you were when you were a toddler? Yeah, I didn't think so, but here's a reminder.
Yeah, you do what my parents did to me is like when you get in an argument and they're like, "Oh, you used to do this all the time." You're like, "No, I didn't." Then you pull up the video and you're like, "Damn, you got me."
No words will be spoken at that
Y-
point.
Yeah, and you're like, "Damn, all right." Well,
You win again, parents. Like they always say, the parents are always right until they're not.
I've never heard the parents part. I've always just heard women are always right.
Oh, parents are always right too.
I
But
think it says mothers are always right.
yeah, everything above.
Yeah, unless you're a man or a son, then you're never right.
In most instances, yes.
Well, folks, welcome back to another episode. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. And Andy, we're not 10 minutes apart anymore.
I know. We're what, 20 hours? What is going on?
Pretty much 20 hours, yeah.
Phew.
I am coming to you guys live. Actually, that's just, I've always wanted to say that. I can't believe it took me 200 episodes to say coming to you live. Um, yeah, I'm in Toledo Bend, Texas. I'm on the Texas side, so technically I'm not in Louisiana, where this Hobie BOS tournament's being hosted out of, which is Louisiana. But yeah, I drove 5 hours Friday night, 13 and a half on Saturday, and got all the way to Shreveport. So 18 hours to Shreveport, and about an hour down here to Toledo, where I'm staying at the Airbnb with my buddy Zach Hall, who it will be here in probably an hour. So if we're still running live, you might see him pop up in this window, like trying to be weird, or if not, he'll come join us.
Is it
But
just you and Zach?
yeah, it's just me and Zach, and then we're gonna have we're gonna have some people over this week probably to do a little crawfish boil and
Oh,
have some
yum.
beers. Yeah,
On my way. On
dude,
my
come
way.
down, come down. We'll spend another week and we'll just go fish.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and got a full day of it. Well, I shouldn't say a full day. I was basically kind of moving in for a few hours Sunday to the Airbnb, but got a decent practice day in terms of graphing on Sunday. About 4 hours in Monday, and then only a couple hours tonight. But so far, so good. I mean, it's better weather than New York, so I have no complaints yet. But starting tomorrow until Friday, I have basically from dark to dark for practice. I actually have off, but the past 2 days I've been working from down here, so it's kind of limited me some practice, which is fine.
Yeah.
I need to get some work done anyways, but
That drive home Monday is going to be brutal after 5 straight days on the water.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting driving home because I'm not gonna do it while I work. So like, knock on wood, if I make the top 10, I have to stay till like 6 p.m. here. So that would limit me to like leaving at like 7 or 8 o'clock.
Ooh,
And then yeah, so I don't know how far I'd get. But I haven't thought too much about it. I don't want to think about it. I'd love to obviously make top 10 and hang around longer on Sunday, but I'm gonna have to like drive Sunday night, partially Monday morning, work most of Monday, and then drive home Monday night. Maybe try to just trooper it and make it to like early Tuesday morning and
yeah, it
sleep for a
sounds like
while.
you're not going to be home until like Wednesday, bud.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know yet. Last year at the Classic, when I fished the Bass Kayak Championship, I drove 21 straight hours from Fort Worth, Texas to New York, which honestly, the last hour was dangerous because you're just like like you're gluing your eyes open to stay
Yeah,
awake.
holy. That's when you
Yeah,
got to call like your lifeline, like your last person that you think will answer. Well, the first
yeah,
person that you hope will answer at
yeah,
no matter what time it is.
yeah. I learned a lesson that day to, while it might be possible to go on the safe side of things and just pull over and take a nap for a while. While I made it alive, doesn't mean I should do it again. So
Probably not.
yeah,
Probably
no,
not.
I think I'll be okay. Honestly, I think I'll be all right. That's the nice part about working remote is I can kind of work wherever, so I can stop at a Chick-fil-A for like 5 hours and get some work done.
Take a nap in Chick-fil-A on a
Take a nap
bench.
on the Chick-fil-A table,
Yes.
covered
Perfect.
in Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets and
Yeah,
the Lord's chicken.
the furthest I've driven, I want to say, is from Asheville to Buffalo, and it was like right under 12. I think it was like 11, but we hit like some weather and it got slow. And yeah, that was brutal. So I can't even imagine what 21 hours straight is like.
You get pretty bored.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you get pretty bored.
21 1 hour podcasts. I don't know if I could listen to that many podcasts in a row.
I didn't even put it in perspective like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I ran out of stuff to. I started like going way back in some podcasts, like to the OG days of like Bass Talk Live, like as far as I could go, and like started listening to like business podcasts. Didn't even care what they were saying. I was just trying to stay awake.
Keep myself alive.
Yeah, dude. I've been called crazy a few times because people see this Nissan Altima pull up with a Hobie Pro Angler 12 strapped to the roof of it, and I'm flying 85 down the expressway. Like
It's
people are
the
like, "You
fastest
car
that
top
Hobie
that,
will
dude?"
ever go.
Yeah, yeah, literally, yeah. Yeah. Going 65, it's 60 miles an hour more than I'll ever top on that thing.
Might as well give it wings.
Yeah, I did. Sunday, I thought it was hilarious. Like there was a bunch of boats out on Toledo, and there's like maybe 12 boats I saw within eyesight that were all graphing this main lake channel swings. And here I am in the pro angler doing the same thing, graphing along. It's just like, what am I doing? Yeah. It's like, what am I doing? But
Scary.
yeah, it is full swing early spring bass fishing here. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. But I'm not going to divulge basically my practice so far, but um, we're going to divulge just kind of our experience in early spring bass fishing in terms of what tendencies, to where to look, where we found success looking, what baits, how we presented them, how to make certain adjustments. And we're not saying that any of these are, the right decisions, but it's stuff that we do and it just makes for good discussion. And I'm more curious because you spent a lot of time on the Great Lakes, like right at ice out. So I'm kind of curious what those fish do. And it's a whole different beast down here. I've been down on like Lake Chickamauga in February, and this is the furthest south I've been this time of year, and bass fishing, I should say. Um, it's crazy how many people are still on the water that fish throughout the winter. But
Yeah, in New York, we're pretty much frozen, or the guys that are getting out on boats are chasing lake trout or perch. So, like,
yeah,
and our
they've
water
given
temps
up.
are mid 30s at most.
Yeah, they've like given up on the bass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess Andy, kick us off. Like for you as a Great Lakes smallmouth captain, like for spending so much time in that body of water, when you are first able to get out of that harbor, get the boat on the water, what are the first things you look for, and then where are the first places you look to try to locate these fish?
Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is go right to where I stopped catching them. So, like, their wintering grounds to see if they're there.
Like the
Fish,
fall, you mean? Like
yeah, like late fall. So, like, when you, Jeff, and Destin went out, right? Like, where those fish were is the first place I'm going to look right after ice out. And then from that wintering hole, I will look for the closest shoals or rock that I know, like, adjacent to that area and to where I know they spawn, and start kind of tracing them back into shore. And that's the first thing that you want to do is know where the wintering hole is, first of all. And then understand how those fish move up to the spawn, and then you can kind of just chase them by looking at contours.
And with that, Andy, I could take over for you.
Yeah.
Andy's munchkin's acting up. No, she's having so that noise you guys just heard in the background. So like that's the noise Andy makes when he loses a fish in a tournament, or when he's trying to skip docks when there's waves. That's the exact. No, I'm just kidding, buddy. But no, Andy, you make a good point. There is like trying to take what you learned late fall, especially for us Northerners, where there's a period of time where we can't get on the ice. You're sorry, you can't get on the water is what I'm saying. Basically you start from where they were, where you had found them, and that's a great starting point to where they might have gone, because during the winter months they're really not going to move much. Especially speaking from a largemouth standpoint, they're not going to travel like a smallmouth does. If you know there's certain lakes that, especially if that, like say a Toledo Bend here that has creek arms, there's a very good chance that they will live and die in that same creek arm their entire life. Which what I've noticed here is a lot of what I've been doing so far is like trying to graph for groups of them, and just seeking advice from. Oh boy, she's screaming. I think you're probably gonna be on mute for a little while.
Every time I take it off of mute, it like re-escalates, like
Yeah.
it like simmers down, and then I unclick mute, and it's just like.
It's like that movie scene where you're like, you go to talk and like that noise happens and you stop talking and it stops, and you go to talk and it happens.
It's like, this is what you're doing. This is what I want you to do. But no, so Scott actually brings up a really good point, and I apologize here, Bailey, now that I'm unmuted and back into the conversation. How deep? It depends on the fishery, right? Like, so some Finger Lakes, the fish might winter in 10 to 12 foot of water. In the Great Lakes, we have shallow fish right after ice out. It's just knowing where they are. And around Buffalo, I have a couple areas that I can catch them in like literally this deep of water, I feel like. But it's really close to a deep channel swing. So kind of similar to like what you're talking about in Toledo. But when I'm out in the wintering grounds, that water's usually 40 to 45. Yeah, like 40 to 45 foot on Erie for the wintering smallmouth. Pretty deep.
I think that's a really good point, and that's something I'm trying to force myself into doing, is because I'm such an offshore / like to be deep kind of guy. I like to be away from the bank. But one thing I've learned, from the South has helped with, and one thing I'd like to do more in the North is when you're getting ice out, you always think like, it's too cold of water, shallow, that they won't be up there. But one thing to remember is they can be shallow, and places to look for are places that are going to retain heat. So any leftover grass that's like somewhat healthy could retain heat. Wood, metal docks. I think metal, I shouldn't say just metal, but metal, any sort of dock.
Any rock,
especially anything where that, especially when you have a day where there's sun, if you can find like a shallow flat, any sort of grass that has some deep water access to it, where that might have like a vertical bank, a vertical like drop where those fish will set up on the fall, that is a great starting point to go look for those early spring fish, that somewhere that might have warmer water or have somewhere that can retain heat for those fish to sit in throughout the winter. I think that's a great starting point, and it's a easier way to kind of. Oh boy. Well, for our MP3 viewers, again, we apologize. Andy, it's your daughter's first podcast, technically.
Oh, it's a glorious thing being a parent, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh, no, it's okay. But that's one thing I'm trying to force myself to be more open-minded about, and in general, is because I love to be offshore, but I need to remember that there is a shallow bite, especially for some bigger fish that might make a move shallow, because sun does a lot for these fish, especially in the early spring, because especially when you take into account and remember sun positioning with lakes, there are certain banks that are going to be considerably warmer than the others, depending on how much sun. Like there's certain banks that are going to get several hours more sunlight than other banks, and those banks will be warmer. So that is a great way to almost basically write off water without covering it or seeing it. You can basically go and see, after a day on the water, where's that sunlight hitting predominantly, and you can basically take that sunlight, that angle, and go on a map and be like, oh, and circle it, waypoint it, whatever you want, to see what might be the more predominant or warmer waters that you should be covering. And that helps you cover water a lot faster, especially speaking from a kayak where I can't cover water as fast. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I feel like I'm mime when I'm on mute. Like I can make hand signals, drink a beer, whatever. Like it's kind of funny. But no, I completely agree. So like uh Team Basspack here is asking if we fish slow. Yes, but once the water hits a certain degree, you can speed it up. But if we're talking right after ice out, you're creeping that bait because the water's 36, 37, 38 degrees. Um, I don't know about you, Bailey, when the water's that cold,
Counting
but
rocks.
yeah, counting rocks. But like the best baits to go to is like a Ned rig, a tube jig, and a really, really slowly fished underspin. Just because that flash
Yeah.
is a little bit extra, but that's really about it.
You
When
know
it,
my favorite early spring bait that I will
yeah,
not take out of I will not put it down because it works everywhere for smallmouth, for
yeah,
largemouth, and it works all year round too.
yeah.
Um, but absolutely love creeping a small, like 2.8 to 3.25 inch swim bait on a football head. And like when I mean count rocks, like you're literally slowly turning your reel handle and you're like 1 rock, 2 rock, donk, and then there's a fish there. But yeah, I always start fishing slow. And then I tend to speed it up if I'm not getting bit just to kind of change it up a little bit. But there's definitely times where you can fish fast, but I think one thing to remember too is in the early spring, and I'm not saying this is 100%, but I think it's okay to fish fast, but you also need to be moving slow, if that makes sense. So not covering as much water, but having a fast presentation. But I think if you're moving too fast with how grouped up these early spring fish are, you can easily burn past them.
Yeah. So like a common thing would be like ripping a trap, right? So like you're making an extremely far cast with the trap in 40-degree water, but you're not burning the trap and you're yo-yoing it or slowly crawling it, just kind of shaking it out of the grass. It's almost like a state. You're almost fishing it kind of like a football jig.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, like it's just very subtle. So like you're yo-yoing it, but you're maybe moving that bait maybe 6 inches at a time, and you're sitting there and counting 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds before you yo-yo it again. So
Yeah.
you're fishing it essentially fast, but you're fishing it extremely slow.
Yeah, there's another good question from Timothy Holberg here. It says, Tactical Bassin talks about speed cranking in the winter, early spring. When do you do that versus slowing down?
When the
Uh,
water hits 50 degrees.
that because yeah, those are Cali boys and Tennessee. Like their temps don't get like down into the early well. Speaking from Northerners, it gets down to freezing, obviously,
Yeah.
because we get ice. But 50 degrees, I would agree. You could even probably have an argument for like high 40s, depending on if you have certain situations, which I was going to get to. Like if you have a good wind, you can definitely speed it up because
Hmm.
it's just going to activate those fish to chase, especially when you're talking about in the fall time when their metabolisms, they make them say, hey, you need
I
to
need to
eat.
eat. Yeah. Jinx.
But they have like, yeah, they have like that same deal to an extent in the early spring is because they've been so cooped up and cold that when the temperatures start coming out, they'll get a little more sun, you get some wind, starts pushing bait around, bait are getting more lively. It gets them in a frenzy and they'll
Hmm.
chew. There's days where you can go and literally smash them on the same 20-foot square. Like you can have a small little boulder pile and you'll catch 80 fish off the one thing because there's so many fish there because they're grouped up from the winter and you can just catch them one after one after one. And it's just like you can catch them, especially if you have certain conditions. I think if it's slack calm and it's sunny and you don't have any wind to your advantage, that's when you want to creep, like slowly drag a football jig, creep a swim bait, dead stick and Ned rig. I'm not a big fan of throwing a drop shot in the early spring. I'm really not.
I don't think I'll pick like, I'll drop shot a little bit for smallmouth on the Great Lakes depending on where they're positioned. So, like, if I'm fishing current breaks and I need to get it pinpoint and drop it straight down on something, I will drop shot. But I really don't pick up a drop shot much until July, until they're really deep and I have to give them that vertical presentation. Um,
Yeah, dude, honestly, especially when it comes to inland lakes, um, and I mean, honestly don't really pick up a drop shot in the South. Not that I have much experience down here, but especially when I'm talking like inland lakes for largemouth and stuff, I don't pick up a drop shot until like after spawn, and
yeah.
that's it. I just think there's way better ways to catch them, and there's way better ways to trigger bigger bites. I'm sure you can
Mhm.
definitely you can catch them on a drop shot. I'm sure you can, but I think one, there's way more fun ways to catch them in the early spring leading up to spawn, and two, there's way better ways to catch them that'll trigger bigger bites than a drop
Yeah.
shot. I think it's just
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree 100%. Like, I love drop shotting. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do. But I do it from largemouth. I'll start doing it like the first or second week of June, like after that first wave of fish has done spawning, because they'll get in that post spawn funk and you can catch them on top water in the morning. Which it's still kind of spring. It's like late spring at that point. But those post spawn fish will lead to drop shots sometimes when they won't eat anything else. But really, it's not until like July. Yeah, that sounds like a juicy spot to go right there.
Yeah, so Backyard Biggin said, the first place I'm going on my lake, it's about 2 feet deep going into this cove. The entrance is 12 feet, always catch there. That is a great point to think about too, is like when you have lakes that have creek arms, one thing I'm learning here in the South is like when to hit certain points or certain stretches. It's kind of like what to focus in on during what times a year. Not saying I'm an expert in the South by any means, but when you have a place that has creek arms, the earlier in the spring, I mean, the more towards the main lake those fish are going to be concentrated because creek arms tend to have the farther back you go, the more shallow water you're going to find, meaning it's going to be colder, pushing those fish towards deeper water, hence the main lake. So those first swings or secondary points you have on main lake creek arms tend to be the best ones that you'll find early spring. That's what I found at Lake Chickamauga last year when there was a low 50 water temps. Was I would run through these creeks and I would start from the back of the creek, work my way out. And the first couple of creeks I got to, all my bites were coming on the first secondary point on each creek mouth and around that first opening where the current was ripping and creating a current break. For the folks who don't know, Chickamauga is a TVA, so it's a river system current. Current is a lot easier to work with, in my opinion, than just your regular lake. But I think that's a great point, is to know, like, I think a lot of people get confused on what depths, and it's basically kind of relative to what lake it is, so you can't get too hyper specific.
No,
But I
every
think
lake is different, 100%.
yeah, and they're gonna be. I think what's cool in the early spring is you can catch fish really deep. You can catch fish in that mid column moving up in transition, and you could find fish shallow.
Hmm.
I think the best place to have like to get on a killer bite is when you can find that transition spot where you have fish coming to you, and then later into that spring you'll have fish coming to you and fish like from both directions, fish leaving a spawning flat and fish that are late pre-spawners coming to you. That is when you can find a place where you have a mix of pre-spawn and post-spawn, you found yourself a juice hole because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're having all the fish coming to you,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I do not. I don't know much about the South, unfortunately. I know our Finger Lakes and then Great Lakes smallmouth, but Team Bass Pack here. I know we have different opinions on this. You don't like the two tap tungsten
I just can't
traps.
get bit, man.
I
I,
love them, but to that point, I do have both usually on because one day they'll eat one and then like in the morning, they might be eating a straight rattling one, as loud as you can be, and then all of a sudden they'll switch and they'll want that two tap. But usually the retrieve is a little bit different too. So it all depends. Man, a lot of good questions coming in
that's
here.
a yeah, dude. That's a really good video topic. Honestly, we should go back to some of our early spring spots that we smashed them on this year, and because we caught them on a lipless. I think one of us should just throw regular lipless, and then one of us should throw 2-tap, and see if we find any differences. Because I've tried to do that to an extent, but me being impatient, if I'm gonna
Yeah.
get bit on lipless, I'm not gonna change to like a 2-tap if I'm already getting bit in the regular. But I've done that before, where like it was every cast on just a regular Strike King red eye shad, and then I switch over to a 2-tap, and I don't get bit for 10 casts. I go back to the regular one, and it's just on like that. And then it just made me not a believer in the 2-tap. I will say, and you might get mad at me for saying this, but I've caught them on Lake Erie ripping a 2-tap off the bottom versus just a regular one.
Was it a red one?
No, chartreuse sexy shad.
Yeah, I believe that. So like Dave Lefebvre actually blew that up a couple years ago. How he was catching them out there instead of fishing a blade bait, he was catching them on a trap, doing the same deal. But what I found a lot of the times with the tungsten deal, with like the 2-tap or a TN70 like disc knocker, they tend to eat that 2-tap or in a one knocker Excalibur like XR50 when it's craw pattern better for whatever reason. Because like if you take like a little juicier, if you take the Queen Hammerhead tungsten jig, right? It's just tick 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 tick. That 2-tap, if you get it to come through the right way in a red bait, it kind of gives that same crawfish tick tick sound.
It's loud as hell.
Yeah, it's much louder than the hammerhead, but that when you take a straight rattle bait, it sounds like bait fish rattling through the water.
If you want to get them fired up, I mean,
yeah,
2-tap is
so like,
do it.
but I've never caught them on a shad pattern or bluegill pattern trap in the 2-tap. It's always in red, and then if I'm on a bluegill trap pattern, I catch them on the big loud rattling ones. So it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm a huge fan of catching them on a lipless, but dude, honestly, oh crap, what's the name of them? So I've been swapping out. Like I love a Strike King red eye shad. I love a Berkeley War Pig for if I'm gonna be yo-yoing. I think it's a way better rip trap than it is a straight reel. I'm not a big fan of straight reel in the War Pig, but I'm also a big fan of the Spro is it Aruka.
Aruka,
Aruka
Aruka.
shad.
Those things are loud as I've never caught one on the Spro, never, but they're
I
loud as can be.
I had 23 pounds on Lake Chickamauga on the Aruka shad last year. That one is pretty. Each of them definitely have their place, but I've learned that swapping. My favorite hook that I've learned to swap out to is that new owner, the
Like
Z
the
wire.
Z-wire, yeah,
That thing. Those are dope for trap hooks. I might even like them more than I do the STXs, which is a bold statement, but I don't know. I got some playing around with that, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. Team Bass Pack asks, do you like a jerk bait, or does a jerk bait play good in the early spring? I will say it's not going to be my first 3 baits I'm picking up, but I will say that if anyone's watched Bassmaster Live or watched YouTube, especially in Texas lately, a jerk bait plays amazing in the winter and the early spring, especially for vertical cover. And if you have a forward-facing sonar, it plays amazing. So I think it definitely will play if you have some finicky bass, but I think there's a lot of other baits. In my personal opinion, there might be situations where jerk bait is the best bait for you to use, but I think there's a lot of other baits to go before it that are,
I have a thought on that as well. I find the jerkbait works better when the fish are relating to current. So in a reservoir situation or a river situation. On natural lakes, it's like 48 degrees is like the hot spot for a jerkbait to start kicking on. But like on the Niagara River, by me, I've caught them when the water was 37 on a jerkbait. But if I'll go to Lake Erie and fishing some of my shallow stuff that I know fish are there and I'm catching on like a Ned rig or a swim bait, I can't get them to eat a jerk bait until the water hits 50. So it's every body of water is different.
So this comment from Shining Wiz TV says, I usually find big and shallow early spring. There are definitely windows, especially when you have sun, that those big girls will get up there and sun themselves, especially if you can find small, shallow flats that have deep water access. I mean, it doesn't really have to be a small flat, but I tend to find them on smaller flats versus your biggest main lake flats that have deep water access. You'll find, especially if you go up there that late morning to early afternoon when there's high sun, they'll come up there. You'll see them roaming. I don't think it's a lot easier during those windows to catch bigger ones early spring, shallow. I mean, like real shallow. But Andy, let's go. Let's break down some of these best pre-spawn lures from Ryan MS 2004.
Oh gosh.
What's your top three? Just fire them off.
Swim bait, like a single swim bait, 3.3, 3.8 on a ball head. Last year I really started liking the Fritz side. I found that to be really effective. And then either a chatterbait or a trap, depending on if there's grass, like the type of grass there's growing. Those are my three best pre-spawn lures.
I will agree on the swim bait. I will also agree on the Fritz side. The first side is freaking juice. And the third one, I'm trying to think here because I use so much in the early spring, but what I actually love to use, I might have to go with the hammerhead.
Yeah.
Especially when you got a warming trend and some sun.
Mm-hmm.
Those fish, especially the crawdads, will get out of the rocks too because they notice that sun's there and they will mash a football jig.
Yeah. Pre-spawn is kind of fun. Like another low-key one too. I caught a couple on this when we went out last spring. Was the swing head with like Venom Dream Craw or that type of bait on it. That can be really good. So, but it's situational, right? There's a very specific spot for it.
You don't see anybody throwing that anymore.
I know, it's crazy how like disappeared off the planet Earth. Although in the last Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit on Big Sam, there was guys throwing the swing head.
Yeah, I definitely don't have it rigged up right now.
So like I've had some insane days on that bait, and then I've had some really bad days where they won't even come within like 5 feet of it. So yeah, it's
tell you what's a really fun bait to throw in the early spring when you have
devil horse.
Water. I'm saying when you have clear water, and well, you don't need grass, but I just saw it sitting over here and it reminded me of some fun days up in New York on clear water. It's a nice glide bait. That's fun because one, they will crush that sucker in the spring, especially early spring when they will not scare from a big meal. But in clear water, if you don't catch them, they will show themselves.
Mm-hmm. And now you know where they are.
Exactly. And that's obviously pendant on if you're going shallow or not. Scott asked about blade baits. We'll definitely throw a blade bait early spring.
100%. Usually smallmouth, mostly. I've never caught too many largemouth on a blade, but smallmouth. When that water hits 40 in the spring, I found that it's like the magic time for the blade to start going for me.
I would love to fish a 25-acre lake right now, especially being on Toledo Bend in a kayak. This lake's freaking huge, man. It's like, I feel like it's twice the size of Champlain. It's probably not, but like in my mind, it's just like, yeah, when you're in a kayak on a massive body of water, it's cool, but also just mentally defeating knowing you're like looking way a couple miles down the lake. Not a couple, like 10 miles down the lake. You're like, well, that sucks.
Hypothetically speaking, how long do you think it would take you to paddle north to south on Toledo Bend doing 4.5 miles an hour in the Hobie straight?
The amount of time it would take me in doing 4.5 miles an hour straight, I would pass out. I don't know how many miles long it is, but like Sunday, I got in 7 hours of graphing and I went almost 20 miles. I think. Yeah. So like if you're going at a good pace and you're not like slowing down too much, you can go a mile in about 15 minutes, which isn't horrible. Actually, you know what? if you're at a good pace, you could probably. I think I've done it in like 10 to 12. So you can put on a good amount of miles. But it's to go the full lake. I think I would need like 2 days. I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
That's why it was a hypothetical question. I wasn't expecting to know the answer. I was just curious.
How long is Canisius? Do you know? 7?
I believe it is 7.25.
Because I've gone the full length of that lake twice in a day.
Yeah, so you did 14 miles.
So yeah, I'm barely not getting through anything on Toledo.
Yeah.
Might get a quarter of the lake. How long is Toledo? Let's look it up.
I believe it's 38 miles. No, it's got to be longer than that. I believe it's 78. It's a big
65
lake.
miles.
Yeah, so it's double and then 10 minus 10.
Nope.
Well, if you did 20 miles in 7 hours, it would take you about 22 and a half hours to get from north to south.
Yeah, I'll pass.
That's a lot of hamster riding, bud.
Yeah, something like that. It's Thunder Thigh season, people. We're back.
So Team Bass Pack, there's certain lakes that Red plays really well on, and it's lakes that have grass. And then if we have lakes that have rock, it tends to be more shad colored for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'm a believer in the red, but I hate throwing red. I'll be honest. I hate throwing it because everyone's out there throwing a red trap. I love a chartreuse perch, chartreuse sexy shad, or a not a big fan of honestly straight sexy shad. I like what's the color? I can't remember the name of the red eye shad that's like it's a shad, but it's like a white and black back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like live shad or something like that. Is that it?
It basically emulates a alewife, which is what we have for heavy forage in New York. That's one of my favorite colors too. But when there's a little bit of stain, like if it's clear water and I want to catch them on the trap, I'll catch them on that color. But if it's a little bit of stain to it, I like a chartreuse perch or a chartreuse sexy shad. Because what I've noticed too is when our bass get real shallow on ice out, so do the perch.
Yeah.
Some perch will stay out if there's grass deeper; they'll stay in the grass. But there are schools of perch that will move shallow, especially that perch that's like that 3 to 5 inches, which is like it's a freaking Twix bar for a largemouth. Especially some of our lakes that potentially somebody might get pissed off of me saying this because I'm already too deep in it and I can't back out now. That some of our lakes have gobies in them. Not just Great Lakes, but like, I mean, if you're smart, you know what lakes are connected to the Great Lakes. Those lakes have gobies. And
Erie Canal System.
Yeah. And I've caught largemouth that spit up gobies in the kayak. And that can also be a sleeper for big bites, is kind of using your goby presentations in the early spring, because when that sun comes out, the same thing I talked about earlier, like the crawfish getting all crazy, same thing goes for gobies.
It's like as soon as they feel any inkling of warmth, all of a sudden you're like, oh great, gobies are out.
Backyard Biggins asks, what would you choose to target bigger bass? If I want to straight just try to catch everything 4 pounds and up and not catch anything under that, it's simple, but my favorite bait to throw is an 8-inch mag draft. Especially because it's like, I've watched it. I've been in a spawning flat before with an 8-inch mag draft where you'll throw the thing and you'll have like 32 pounders just come up to it and go eat like your whole rod, like you're reeling. You could feel the tail kick, but your rod's like dong, 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 because all the 2-pounders are headbutting it and they can't get it in their mouth. And then you'll have a 4-pounder just eat it, or you have a 6. Like, it's fun because it makes you like, unless they legitimately hit that hook, no smaller fish other than be like beyond 4 pounds is gonna eat that thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's a fun, really fun. I already know what your bait's gonna be to target bigger bass.
What's that?
Chatterbait.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Andy's all about the chatterbug. I have to admit on live air that I believe
I love this. By the way, I've been on you for a year about it.
I know. We talked about this on so many episodes, and I think the argument, I shouldn't say argument, the debate has finally come to a close. And it's all, I'm going to blame it all on a loose BB1.
Remember last spring, I was like, "It's your reel, dude. It's your reel is why you don't like this rod because I casted it with that reel." And you're like, "No, man, the reel's fine." I was like, "No, it's the reel."
Yeah, I had so I am a glass rod believer as of right now. But it's really dependent on like what reel you're using. Because if you don't have the right reel, because the reason I hated the glass rod was
You
'cause I
couldn't
didn't.
cast.
Well, I mean, it wasn't really that. I mean, you could cast, but I've obviously cast a lot better now that I have that Tatula SV on it. But there wasn't a lot of feel, and I think that was legitimately part of that reel because it threw off the balance of it.
Mhm.
But now that I have that lighter SV, different handles, I don't know. Maybe it's in my mind, maybe it's all in my head, but I can feel that chatterbait actually knock way better now than when I did have that different reel on. Because I think it was a heavier reel, so I think that
Yeah.
throws off the balance of the rod. I could be wrong, but basically what I'm saying is I put that rod to work recently and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, but that is not taking away from the fact that like if there's times when I want to take a chatterbait and fish it around wood. Not that you can't with a glass, but it's just not a
It's
great
not
option.
practical. Yeah.
Yeah, or you want to skip it under docks or under cover, whatever it is. I do love that 7.5 winch, which is a composite. That thing's a beast for that because it's got like that rod action of a glass to like the parabolic, but has that graphite mix so that you can actually feel that thing.
You know, I wish, I don't wish when we fished our classic tournament last fall, because I was skipping docks with that glass rod you have with you down at Toledo. And I firmly believe I probably wouldn't have landed half of those largies I caught on the chatterbait if I didn't have the glass rod. Because it
Oh,
was literally down their throat.
our
Every one of them.
24 was it 24 pounds? Yeah, or three.
25.
It was 25.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
It was 25.48, I believe, or 3.8.
Hold on.
Because first place had 26. We lost by like a pound.
Yeah, they smashed him. Hold on. I'm pulling this up. It's honestly bothering me right now that I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, you know what? Really fast. While we're on this topic, here's a great post from John Sokup about so we were talking about fishing banks that have the more sunlight on them.
Oh, you're right. 24.86. We were
Was it
just under
24?
25. Yeah. Sorry.
It's almost, yeah. I mean, put another shad in its mouth and you're at
Yeah.
25.
But
Uh,
those are the fish we caught.
let's here's a post from
Yeah.
John Sokup. That is early spring bank fishing in a nutshell.
Yep.
The more water that's going to have longer sunlight on it, the warmer it's going to be, meaning there's going to be more. I'm not saying that there's more fish there, which there could be. More active fish will be there.
Hmm.
And that's what you're looking for in the spring. But here's a good question too. And I'm actually very intrigued by this topic and what your answer is going to be. So scent. I think scent always plays, especially for smallmouth. I think scent isn't as important in the early spring as it is in the summer.
I'm going to go the exact opposite
Interesting. Explain.
because
I
the
will
fish,
say that also depends on how pressured the fishery is.
yeah, well, fish are more lethargic in the spring. So that extra bit of scent might actually persuade them to eat. When you're flipping, right? Flipping grass, your bait is in there for 1, 2 seconds, maybe 3 seconds at most, unless you're sitting there soaking it, counting to 10 before moving it. When you're flipping grass in the summer, you can catch them without scent because it's more reactionary. But when you're casting, like think about it, the hammerhead is so good in the spring because it smells like coffee. It's scented. You put a max scent trailer on there, you're going to get way more bites than dragging a standard football jig with no scent on it. We tested it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and here's my point for saying summer, though. So you say fish are lethargic. I think if fish are more active, that means, especially when you're talking max scent, and if you have some current or water flow, I mean, there's obviously always natural water flow. The more active fish are, the more fish are going to cross paths with that scent trail, which is why I think that place, especially for smallmouth. But there is 100% a largemouth play for scent that people overlook. I just think in the early spring, after they've been cooped up, they can just kind of be so apt to biting a lot, especially because one, watercolor, two, they're basically feeding up to get ready to move shallow. They can be pretty active relatively. So that's why I think that in the early spring, I think there's something's moving. Depending, I don't know. I can go so many different ways on it. I just think that it's
There
not
is no
important in
wrong
the early
answer.
spring. Yeah.
I don't. I think every answer is a right answer because it's all based on confidence. But smallmouth, yes, you need scent early season,
How
one
about,
hundred percent.
how about this for a definitive answer, Scott? If you can get away and include scent at all
Do it.
times, do it.
Always do it. Always do it, especially if it's the scent you're confident in. 100%.
Especially if it's max scent.
Yes. Max scent, 100%.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. We had some reviews and reports from Okeechobee fishing guides that said they were getting bit more on max scent than they were live shiners.
That's just.
Think about that.
Well, I mean, how many people are floating live shiners on a hook? It obviously doesn't look natural in the water. Yeah, there's scales floating around and stuff, but max scent is just way more enticing for 'em. I can tell you how many times probably on both my hands and toes counted like 4 times how many times I've outfished live bait boats with artificials on Lake Erie.
Andy and I have been spot locked fishing an exact spot. Had a boat pull up on us, sit on top of our
With
lines
crawfish.
with live bait, and Andy and I caught 25 pounds with our lines under his boat. I mean, you can't really get a better honest review than that.
We were using max scent. But just like it was just silly, like what happened that day. It was comical.
Dude, I can't drop shot with anything else anymore. I can't. I have no confidence. Like I put on something that doesn't have max scent, and I'm just like, I drop it down maybe 10 times, and I am back to max scent.
Yeah, for smallmouth, 100% max scent, but I do have some largemouth drop shot baits that I just have like insane confidence in that I know I will get bit on. I haven't quite found the perfect max scent drop shot worm for largemouth yet, but I have a feeling I know which one I want to use. I just haven't tried it.
I think the D worm is a good one.
I was going to say
There's
the hit worm.
hitworm. That's a good one. Hitworm Magnum I like in the summer. But also one thing I don't like the flatworm, the 4 1/4 inch. I do not like that for smallmouth. I like that for largemouth because there are some baits, like especially smaller drop shot baits, that largemouth will like, and especially when they get tough in the summer. So I'll soak like a 4 1/4 inch flatworm with like a 1/0 cover shot or a 2/0. They'll munch that thing. I mean, you're not gonna get you could get big bites on it, but like if you just want to catch fish, that's a decent little bait right there. Something small, and it fits tight in grass. You don't get as hung up as just throwing like a 7 inch worm. I shouldn't say hung up, but like you don't drag through the grass as much. All right, Andy. Team Bass Packs asking, does sand plate good in pre-spawn?
It depends on what lake you're on, but the answer is yes for me. But it's a certain water temp deal when it gets good, as always. Hey, Tim, real quick. Max scent Omnia, if you use our code SERIOUS, all uppercase, 15% off. And if you spend more than $50, you get free shipping. So if you're going to buy some max scent, that's the place I would recommend going because you're going to get a little bit of a percentage off.
I'll put that down in the comments for you folks. And for people tuning in, especially on MP3, All of our discount codes are always in the show notes if you guys want to save some money at some of our partners. So, I had somebody ask if we had a Humminbird discount the other day. I was like, damn, I wish, and also wish they had product.
Yeah, yeah, that's the issue. Like I believe Mark Menendez is gonna be running a flasher on the bow of his boat at the St. John's because he doesn't have graphs.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So like even the Elite Series guys are struggling to get product.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough because Humminbird makes an amazing product, which it's just a matter of getting something from a shipping container overseas, and that's what's so frustrating about it is they have some awesome stuff, like literally that people can't get their hands on right now. And it's tough, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, it's not just the fishing industry right now; it's literally everything.
Go to your grocery store and tell me if everything is on the shelves. Good luck. Like supply and demand is terrible right now. But to Scott's point here, let's get back to talking baits.
No,
I actually do have scents that I apply myself.
I'm not a big fan of it because if anything to me is oil based, fish can't actually consume that. If it's oil based, it's literally just a slick. The only time this is a little bit of juice that I learned from Bobby Lane when I was down on Lake Tahoe last year before ICAST. Bobby Lane was telling me because he had what's it called? What's the bang? Is it bang?
Bang, bang spray, yeah.
Bang spray. And I asked him, like, where are you using that, Bobby? Like, because he's throwing it on stuff with max scent. And he's like, what I'm doing is when I punch, I spray with the bang spray and it makes a slick, makes it slippery, lets baits get through the mat easier. That is the only time that a lot of pros will ever use stuff like that because it doesn't actually give off a scent. It's just a oil slick, which is what bait looks like. They have a slick to them. And that's majority of the reason why those scents will work. But
Mm-hmm.
fish can't actually smell them or taste them like you could a max scent because a max scent is infused. Same thing with power bait. As soon as they eat power bait, they get a taste, they get a flavor. Max scent actually disperses that and leaves a scent trail, which people get power bait and power bait max scent confused all the time. It's like here's this is one of the cool things working in PR for Pure Fishing. I get to work with the engineers and see the behind the scenes, the inside scoops on this stuff, and actually how legitimately the science and how it works. And they basically say, so you walk into a house, your mom's making cookies. You know when you walk in the door and you smell the cookies when it's 20 yards away from you, that's max scent. And that scent gets stronger as you get closer to it
Now I
until
want a cookie.
yeah until you finally get to the kitchen and eat a cookie and you taste how good it tastes. That's power bait. If that makes sense. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah,
All right.
you primo. No, like so some of the scents that I will use, I'll actually like infuse them in the baits, right? Like a big one for me is goby oil, which they don't make anymore for smallmouth. And what I would do is I would take a little dip of it and I would put it in the bag of soft plastics that's not power bait or max scent and leave it on the deck of my boat for an hour or two in the sun so it gets warm and gooey. And then I would bring them inside in a cool place and it would absorb all that juice. And now you have a goby oil infused bait. But you'd need a very salted bait to absorb it correctly because a salted bait is more porous than a non salted bait. So, like, if you have a non-salted bait infused in the plastic, it doesn't absorb the scent that you put on the bait as well as other ones.
Oh, this comment from Anthony is amazing.
It's so good. Max scent does not smell good when you smell in the
No,
bag. It smells putrid.
it's horrible. It's god awful, especially when you use it all day and your hands smell like it. Dude,
Yeah.
one of the days, like I was using Maxent when we went out to dinner afterwards. Yeah, it was the day where we smashed him under that guy's boat because you and I went to
Yeah.
get drinks and food after.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I went to go eat that burger, and I was like, "Oh God!" Like it smells so bad. But that's just a sign of that's why it works so dang
Yeah,
good.
it's like a mix of goby and crawfish that have been left on a boil out in the hot Louisiana sun for like 4 days straight, and you take the lid off, and you're like, "Oh god, that's max scent when it hits the sun for a couple hours."
You want to know
Brutal.
a top secret? Not really a top secret, but a really cool fact about power bait and max scent.
They both have crawfish in it.
No,
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what's in it, and that's part of my fact or my cool fact thing. Only 3 people in the world know the ingredients to power bait and max scent. 3.
Wild.
That is the most top secret shit ever in fishing.
Yeah.
I have tried. I've already tried. Trust me. I've given drinks to Mark Sexton. He will not tell me.
He's like, if I tell you, I have to kill you type deal. You can try, Anthony. Let me know how it tastes.
Yeah, Anthony, give us a report. Give us a report back if you're alive. Anthony's asking if Max Scent's edible. I've yet to see anyone try to eat it. Definitely don't recommend it.
I think it says on the bag, "Do not consume."
Yeah,
Like,
I would genuinely not be surprised if there was like grams of protein in it. There's got to be something in that thing, man. It's crazy, but there's some pretty good articles out there. If you guys look back from last spring, I think Fishing Tackle Retailer has an article out where they talked about the Berkeley Bait Lab and what goes on and the science that they have that's like years ahead of people. It's pretty crazy, like what they have going on. Now, there's some people that don't like Berkeley, and that's fine. But when you want to talk about legitimate science behind what they're doing, it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
I won't lie though, I did strike gold recently, and I know I sent you a picture of it. I found some old Berkeley Havoc pit bosses, and I was thrilled. And I think I might stop back there again tomorrow and see if they have more because I just keep buying them up for like $3 a bag.
Dude, when I got in the boat with Hank Parker, we were flipping pit bosses, like the yellow package ones.
Yeah.
And we had ran out because we were catching a bunch of fish. And I was like, "Hey, Hank, you got any more pit bosses in the boat?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Open that compartment. And there should be some more." And I open it up. All I see is Havoc packages of pit bosses. I look at Hank, and I'm like, "I won't tell anybody." And he goes, "You better not." Because he's like, "You won't live much longer after you tell somebody that those are there."
Because everybody's gonna come grab them.
Everyone's trying. Yeah, he's like, somebody will try to steal those out of my boat if they realize I have them.
Oh yeah, they were so good, and I think that was like one of the only Berkeley baits that wasn't scented. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
they're
think
scented.
it was literally like I don't know what exactly it was. It just had like a weird slick to it, and that was about it. It
Yeah,
didn't have power bait. I think that was they had power bait, but it wasn't in their bass lineup yet. Because I think power bait, their money makers, I think, is trout. Like trout makes it's like a multi-million-dollar business, I believe.
yeah. Well, at that time, chigger craws were out in the power bait line, like the 7-inch ribbon tailworms and stuff. Oh, nice. That's good stuff.
Anthony's here with the jokes, man.
Yeah, I love it.
Max
Keep
scent
'em,
is
keep 'em.
better than my mother-in-law's cooking. In my world, that's my mother's cooking. My mother-in-law's cooking is out of this world.
Same.
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
I
mom.
I always look forward to like mother-in-law meals because like big time Italian family homemade sauce, like incredible.
There's another good one from Nick Rose.
Beautiful. Like that is so like the hockey gloves after they sat in your bag after sweaty
Dude,
gear and the
this
smell resonates on your hands. I could
this
still
is
smell it.
this is a social media post here. We need to go, folks. We're gonna put on social media. I think we'll do it tomorrow morning because you guys are inspiring us right now. We're gonna put up a Max Scent post and basically put what you think Max Scent smells like. I know Berkeley's done it in the past, but you guys are putting out some fire answers right now, so we need to do that.
Yeah.
Straight up, totally smells like hockey gear.
It's so bad. It literally smells like your hands like 3 days after hockey because you can never get the scent out like long enough. And then by the time you play again, they stink again. Like my hands just started to stop smelling from that pond hockey tournament I played in Saturday. So like it was bad.
Yeah, there's
Ugh,
hockey isn't a
a faint of nose sport.
no. Honestly, I'm fairly convinced because there's so many times where like Lan, my fiance, and I will be somewhere and she'll smell something. She goes, "Oh my god, you smell that?" And I'm like, "I literally don't smell a thing." I legitimately think that my nostrils have been burned from playing hockey
Immunized.
for 18 years. Yeah, like
Dirty diaper.
yes, definitely a dirty diaper.
Oh, this guy had a beer blow up in his bag. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, in his hockey bag. I assuming he's talking about.
Yeah, hockey bag or like baits? Because if it's baits, I'm actually intrigued if you threw it. If you get a bass drunk, is he easier to catch?
If the answer is yes, I might have to pour a beer in the lake every day as like a starting off ritual. Like 6 a.m. crack her open, pour it in,
Dude,
donate the nectar of the gods.
dude, you find a giant on a bed and you just start pouring a beer out over her bed so she gets drunk.
Brilliant. Or what was the old? Yeah, genius.
Oh, dude, it's like the squirt gun, like with the cleaner to clean off the pollen off the water. It's a squirt gun with like liquor. And you're just
Yeah.
getting the bass on the bed drunk. There you
Well,
go. We got Rich in the house tonight, asking if we tweaked our fantasy lineup since Thursday, and we probably would have, but we made a pact that what we choose on the shows is what we ride with. We ride or die with it. So
yeah, I
definitely
can't
would
wait
like
for
to adjust the weight prediction.
I actually don't want to because I'm pretty sure they're all going to burn the fish, and we're going to see the weights drop significantly come day 4. Because if you look in the photos, some of them kind of give up where they are, and they're all in the same lake together catching those fish.
I genuinely believe with that elite field, I think they're too smart to burn those fish. I
It
think those guys
depends.
know not to beat the crap out of them. It's not an open field where you have a bunch like 200
Yeah,
bronies that are going to go and catch 30, 25-pound bags for 4 days and then wonder why the fish aren't there. Rich is in California. What the hell are you doing in California? Good grief. You dropped from 78 to 70? Scott, why'd you go down? They're smashing him in practice right now. At least Biggins.
yeah. But Max sent blow up in his trunk because of the heat. Super bad aftermath. I could see that being horrible.
Wait, what? I've heard of Z-Man blowing up.
So Max scent is combustible. Is that what he is saying?
Wait, what? Dude, you're gonna have to send us a message. I'm so intrigued right now because I've never heard of it.
You
Oh,
gotta
Mr.
send that.
Zach Hall is here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm so intrigued right now. I want to know if there's pictures too, because like I know you can leave Max Scent out in the sun. And here's a little bit of juice for people. When you got Max Scent and you leave it out in the sun and it dries up a little bit, it'll make for a better flipping bait because it's not as soft, but still having the infusion, the scent dispersion. I'm so curious right now. You got to shoot us a message and tell us more info.
Yeah.
Working in Cali, I mean, hopefully, Rich, you can get some fishing in Cali. Maybe go experience the Delta. I would like to experience the Delta and Clear Lake once in my life.
I want to go to like Shasta. I want to fish like those spotted bass lakes out there that just have absurdly giant spots. Oh, there he is behind you.
I told you he was going to do it. I called it.
It,
I called that you were going to do that on the intro. Yeah.
I was expecting like butt cheeks or something, honestly. Like,
yeah, he literally said he should have put his cheeks on. Zach Hall, everybody. No, speaking of spotted bass, I caught a 2.5-pound spotted bass today.
Hey, look at you. That's a big one for there.
That's my PB spotted bass. I should take a picture.
That's a pretty big spot for Toledo. Like,
that's what I was saying. I was like, I didn't know there were spots in this thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of like the pros when they fish there, like, 12-inch spot rats, because they just get like a limit for whenever you see like a Texas tournament and somebody weighs in 7 pounds, it's usually five spots.
Yeah.
They're all like 1.25 pounds.
Yeah. Anthony, your comments are amazing.
On fire. Absolute fire.
For the MP3 listeners, Anthony says, I throw Max Scent baits in the front of my pockets of my shirt So when I get home from fishing, the wife tells me to get out. Then I go fishing again.
Perfect.
That's amazing. Oh boy. All right, what else? Anthony, you got anything left for tonight? I mean, I know we didn't have a crazy long episode tonight, but it was good to chit chat about some early spring stuff, kind of what's been going on.
All I
down here.
know is I can't wait to get my boat in to get it serviced for the year and for the ice to leave our dang lakes because I am dying to set the hook into a green one or brown one. But I have a feeling we're going to be waiting a little bit for Erie to open. So,
That's what I was telling you. Our spiral staircase in our Airbnb. Let me see if I can actually like show you guys the web camera. Oh wait, I have the wrong camera on. I thought I had my webcam on. It's been my laptop camera this whole time.
oh,
Hold on. Let me see if I can change this for folks.
genius! Fucking
Genius.
genius! Hey, folks, it's just me. No, but Team Bass Pack, that sounds absolutely awful. I hope he sold that vehicle. I would have wanted to get rid of it, although I'm sure the trade-in value was much less. Hey, the angle's a little different there, bud.
Is it actually? No. So it's actually not even connecting my.
Huh. Oh, another big congrats. Thanks, Team Bass Pack. Here again, Brandon Lester winning his first blue trophy.
He's gonna
Something
win
we
the
didn't
classic
touch
in
on.
Knoxville next year.
It's about time he won one. He's been so close so many times. Every year we're like, Brandon Lester's finally gonna win one. Now here's the question, right? Does Brandon Lester's career at this point take off? Because we already know he's a dynamite fisherman, right? Now that he's finally won a tournament, does he free up just a little bit more and start winning more?
Maybe he almost won the classic at Gunnersville. I shouldn't say almost. He was on top 10 at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope so. He's pretty dang good.
He's a good guy too, from what we've seen of him when we had him on. So
yeah, and congrats to Michael Neal winning Sam Rayburn. Had like was it 21 pounds on the last day?
yeah,
Scoping him on deep drains. So smart. And then the Toyota Series. Actually, I have the results here. I didn't even check them yet. Toyota
I'm
Series.
excited to watch the BPT tomorrow, actually, because they moved to Caney Creek, which I guess has just absolute giants in it.
You fish Caney Creek, right? In Louisiana?
No, never had.
No.
My dad fished there a long time ago and caught like a 9-pounder.
9-pounder?
40 years ago.
Damn.
Yeah.
So by
Yes,
that math, it should be 35 pounds.
Same way I'm thinking it.
Or what?
It should, by that math, if it was 30-year-old fish, 9 pounds, it should be like a 40-pounder.
Southern
I'm just
fish
being
are weird.
funny. I'm just being funny.
The Toyota Series on Lake Okeechobee, the winner was Robert. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but he won 66 grand for a Toyota Series.
That's pretty good.
That is pretty good. But all right, Andy, you got anything else left for the folks?
No, but Anthony is on fire with comments. Apparently,
Coons.
that's wild.
I'm gonna have to. What? Oh, Andy, are you talking about his glasses?
Yeah.
Weird glasses. I was like, what is he talking about?
Middle-aged man looking like the Green Lantern. That's hilarious. No, but I did get some DT8s in today, and they look fire. That's all I have to say. If you can get your hands on some, I think they're going to fit a niche where a lot of crankbaits overpower or under-deliver in that depth range. So I'm pretty excited to throw those around. And they're the size of a DT6.
Yeah, make sure you're checking Omnia for that.
Yeah, 15% off.
Selfless plugs.
Yes. It's nice. Like the free shipping over $50, and then you don't have to wait 2 weeks for your baits to get to you. So
That is nice.
It's pretty nice. Yeah.
Well, Andy, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna
Get some
stuff
sleep.
ready for tomorrow. Yeah, actually get some sleep. I haven't been doing well with that past few weeks, honestly. But yeah, we got 3 full days of practice. Well, I shouldn't say full days. Friday's not really a full day. We have to be off the water at like what, 2?
I haven't checked the time, but yeah, it's early in the evening sometime.
Yeah, so we don't get a full day. But tournament Saturday, Sunday. We shall see how it goes. If folks want to tune in to Serious Angler Instagram, Facebook page, or my personal page, you guys can kind of keep up with some updates, and we'll try to
Do
do
we
a
have a
show together.
podcast Thursday, or is that up in the air?
Yeah. So before we tune out here, dummy me. But if you have back-to-back fantasy shows and we want to do Thursday night, you have to wait until the tournament is over to put in your fantasy fishing for the next tournament. So we cannot have our fantasy fishing show for the Harris chain. We will probably shoot for Monday night next week. So there will not
that's
be a
going to be a
Thursday night
brutal
live.
day for you Monday.
Yes. But the show shall go on. So
shall go on.
there will be no Thursday night live. And we'll see. We'll look into trying to do a Monday night live next week with that fantasy stuff. Whether I'm a zombie or not, we'll make it happen. But want to keep folks informed. But Andy, if you have nothing else, we're going to wrap it up right here. Good? All right.
Yeah.
What, did you have something?
No, I was saying,
Oh.
yeah.
I was
And
like,
then we
yeah.
said it at the same time. Yeah.
All right, folks, we appreciate all you guys joining in. Good show tonight. A lot of engagement. We always appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
And we will see you folks on Friday.